Hello and welcome to this latest episode of my YouTube channel. Sorry I've not been on for a while. It's been a bit of a time since my last video, which actually was in New Jersey. I had a video planned and recorded for you that I did in LA. Unfortunately, there was a few issues with the sound in that. I had it recorded and then midway through, I just realized I going like that, and yeah, it didn't really go through. But I'm here now for you after a week off, and I've had a bit of time off just to unplug. It was actually my birthday over the past week after the US tour. So when I got back from the US tour, immediately flew out to France with some friends and had a lovely holiday there. And then I've been back. And the great thing about summer birthday is you get to really elongate it and sort of milk it. So had family dinner this week, various different stuff going on, party this evening. So it's going to be a busy few days. Well, it has been a busy few days for me since I got back, and I still feel quite jet lagged. So sorry I've not been on, but during the time I wanted to just take a bit of time off away from football and Twitter and just try and be present with some family and friends, because sometimes that can be quite difficult, and managed to do it. And during that time off, it seems like almost everything possible that could have happened with Arsenal has happened. Last time I did a YouTube video, the Twitter logo was blue. That's how long it's been since I last did one. So apologies for the delay, but I hope you can appreciate that. I needed a bit of time off just before the season starts, because it's going to be pretty hectic once it does get going. And Mikel Arteta is hosting his first pre-match press conference at London Colney ahead of the Community Shield this Sunday. That's going to be in a few hours as I record this on a Friday morning. So it's going to be a busy few days coming up from an Arsenal perspective and from a journalism perspective as well. So I'm hoping that you guys will be following me on all the platforms across all of it. Kaya Kaynak 97 on Twitter, Kaya Kaynak Journalist on Facebook, Kaya Kaynak FL on Instagram and Threads. And as always, I love starting these videos with a massive thank you to all of you. Up to 3.55k subscribers, which is amazing. So humbled. I hope you guys are liking the content in terms of the stuff I'm putting out from the games. Putting out a few shorts and stuff. Please do let me know feedback-wise what you think about that, because it really helps me in terms of trying to just engage with what you guys want and trying to see what you guys actually are after when it comes to this channel, because ultimately I'm doing it for all of you. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. But I figured we could use this video to reflect firstly on the AS Monaco game. Arsenal obviously are now Emirates Cup champions. You know, first trophy of many. Championis. I don't think anyone's going to be singing that for a while. They win it for, I think, the 7th time. So a decent record in the Emirates Cup. But yeah, that's the plan for this video. And then once we've done with that, hopefully we'll be able to go on and talk about some transfer stuff, because I know you all love that, even though I'm not the world's biggest fan of transfers, I have to say, but you guys all love them. So let's talk about them a little bit later. But first, I want to talk about the game. And I guess from an actual game perspective, the most interesting thing for me, at least, was seeing Declan Rice playing in a new role. And now his was his first start at the Emirates. Obviously a big occasion for him. It was really funny, actually, coming out of the stadium, because you have to work in the press room afterwards, and you do the press conference, and then you do your articles and all that stuff, and it always takes a little bit of time to leave. You tend to leave at the same time as the players after they've done their warm down and stretches and all that stuff and team talk, and And Declan Rice was driving out, very nice black sports car. Unfortunately, I'm not really much of a car guy, so I won't be able to tell you what kind of model it was. But what I did notice, and the reason I noticed it was him, was because about 200 Arsenal fans immediately swarmed it, and some kids were jumping in front of it, which probably wasn't the wisest thing to do. But yeah, they were all desperate to get that selfie with Declan Rice, and the hype around him is massive. And I think he would have helped himself hype-wise with performance on Wednesday night. Very good performance, I think. Interestingly, in that Granit Xhaka role, and rather than the number 6 where he's been playing so far for Arsenal, obviously started that game against Manchester United, came on against the MLS All-Stars, got a little bit of an injury against Barcelona, so before Barcelona, so couldn't play in that game. But I think Arsenal did some scans on that, and thankfully it came back okay after he got a bit of a whack in training. But yeah, it's interesting to see that versatility and see him playing alongside Thomas Partey. Obviously, the stories from various sources around the club were that Partey might be on his way out, but he is someone who now seems he's going to be staying. Mikel Arteta has been very clear on that, and he's very clear as well that he wants Thomas Partey and Declan Rice to play together. So that was the first experience we got of seeing that yesterday, and I thought it was pretty good. Arteta on Rice, just his quotes, in case you can't see them, in case you're listening on podcast. Arteta said, I think he has the versatility to play different roles, and it's something we want to maximise. We want to do to maximise the quality of other players who have the ability to play together. We will use him in different positions. So, like I say, we've seen him in the 6, we've seen him in the 8, and now this seems more like a Granit Xhaka type performance. He was getting forward a lot more. At times, in the first few minutes, Jurrien Timber was inverting from left back, and Timber was great as well, by the way. Again, if I had longer in this video, I'd definitely go into a little deep dive on Jurrien Timber, but there's another deep dive coming a little bit later when we talk about a certain centre forward position. But yes, Declan Rice I thought was really good. He was drifting out to the left wing when Jurrien Timber was inverting. He was getting forward pretty well, had a decent chance to score, which ultimately led to Eddie Nketiah's equaliser. 2 really good runs down the left byline, which created really good delivery. And I thought, just the kind of things that Granit Xhaka was doing last season, the kind of things that I think Mikel Arteta will be pretty happy to see based on what he's seen so far. So yeah, pretty good stuff from Declan Rice on his home debut, and hopefully, going into the Emirates Cup, Community Shield, he'll be able to perform to a similar level against Manchester City, against the side who wanted him, against the side who Arsenal beat him to. So beat to him. I can't remember. That doesn't really work. Doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, Declan Rice performed really, really well, I thought. On that sort of left 8 position, I thought he was one of the brighter players for Arsenal in that first half. And listen, it wasn't the most exciting of matches. Pre-season friendlies are always a bit dull, but this was another level. And I thought he was someone who really stood out in the game. But obviously came when it emerged that Gabriel Jesus, unfortunately, is going to be out for a while. Mikel Arteta confirming after the game that Gabriel Jesus has had to have surgery on a knee injury. It's the same knee injury that kept him out for 4 months last summer, the World Cup one. Very unfortunate for Jesus. Just a few things where he's been having discomfort, and Arsenal decided to go in there and clean it up basically and deal with the injury. So sad news for Arsenal, because they're obviously going to be without Gabriel Jesus, who was looking at his very best. I thought it was superb against Barcelona, and Mikel Arteta confirmed that after the game, agreed with that, after the game, saying, look, I thought it was the best Gabby he'd seen in months, is what he said. And now, just as he's getting back to his best, it seems he's been cruelly struck down by an injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks, is what Arteta said. So you'd assume that means the rest of this month. Now, game-wise for Arsenal, not the end of the world. Obviously, the Community Shield is coming up on Sunday, and that's huge against Manchester City. But on paper, at least, their opening fixtures are Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, and Fulham. And you'd like to think in the month of August they'd be able to pick up wins without Jesus in those games. Obviously not easy. And then when September comes, I think it's Liverpool away pretty much straight away. So you'd want Jesus back for that if you can. But what I wanted to do for you guys is just sort of go through the options that Arsenal have. So you can see there Eddie Nketiah, Kai Havertz, Leandro Trossard, and Folarin Balogun. Now, I'm going to go through them in a little bit of depth. I'm going to try something new here, a little bit of a deep dive. It's going to be quite visual. So if you're listening on podcast, I'll do my best to describe it to you. But I wanted to start by just looking at Eddie Nketiah as an option. Now, Eddie is someone who was given a lot of criticism before the ball was even kicked on Wednesday, which I've never understood personally. He's an academy kid, done good, captaining the side, doing really well. Obviously, I put out the news that he was going to be captain, and people got quite upset about it. They were almost laughing. But, Jesus was injured, Holding wasn't there, Odegaard was on the bench. Could have given it to Declan Rice, I guess. But, I think Eddie Nketiah was a decent choice, and I thought he did pretty well in the game. And you saw the strengths that Eddie Nketiah does have. He's actually stronger than people give him credit for. He's very physical up front. He was pretty good at winning the ball off some much bigger defenders against him up top, and I thought he did okay. He obviously scored, created some chances, worked pretty well to bring his teammates into play. But for all his strengths Eddie has, and people give him stick for his record in front of goal, his record in front of goal in terms of goal contributions actually per game last season per start, which I think is really important, because when Eddie starts, he tends to either score or assist, and that's a pretty good record. But it was 11 goal contributions in 18 starts. Gabriel Jesus got 16 in 27 starts last season. So actually, per start, Eddie's goal contributions are slightly better. I think it's 0.61 versus 0.59. So from that perspective, Arsenal should be able to get by without Jesus if Eddie does start up top, and he's certainly a good option. And he said post-match that he's not accepting being second choice. He's excited to fill the role. He's ready to fill the role, but he's not just going to be there to fill it. He wants to obviously take the role from Gabriel Jesus, and that's the kind of position, the way he's viewing this few months. And he did pretty well last season when he came in. Started 11 games in a row. Obviously scored a decent amount of goals. But what you lose with Eddie in the team, I think, is the unpredictability that Gabriel Jesus offers. And I've brought up these heat maps here just to demonstrate that. So here's Gabriel Jesus' heat map against Chelsea away last season, which I thought was his best performance of the season, even though he didn't actually score. I thought he was sublime. And it was the kind of performance where when Arsenal went there and won at Stamford Bridge, I know Chelsea weren't the side that they have been in the past, but that was for me the time when I thought, wow, Arsenal could actually challenge for the Premier League this season. And Gabriel Jesus' performance was a huge part of that. And look how much green there is on that heat map. And for those of you listening on podcast, basically the whole final third is green or yellow, indicating that Gabriel Jesus has spent most of his time there. He has popped up everywhere on this pitch, all over the place, even sometimes just outside the centre circle when coming deep to receive the ball. And then he could be anywhere. And imagine being the poor centre-back who has to track him. Imagine being that guy who has to think, God, where's he going to be? Where's he going to pop up next? And Chelsea really struggled with it on the day. Thiago Silva was excellent and just about managed to limit Jesus' chances. But yeah, he was excellent on that day. And this is when Jesus is at his best, is what you get from him, that unpredictability up top. He can interchange with various different players. You don't know what position he's going to pop up in, and that makes him so difficult to track. Eddie, on the other hand, I went for his most recent competitive start, the heat map from his most recent competitive start, and that was Aston Villa away last season when Arsenal won 4-2. And you can see there that most of his sort of, I guess, positions on the pitch were taken up in and around the goal mouth. For those of you who can't see, his heat map is almost entirely within the 6-yard area in terms of the hottest part of the heat map, so the most yellow, orange, green bit. The rest, you see a few blue spots all over the place. He does pop up on the wings, and that's not to say that he stays totally within the width of the 6-yard box, but he does tend to stay central because that's his game. It's not better or worse, it's just different. And what it does mean is that maybe Arsenal become a touch more predictable up front. And Arteta's spoken a lot about wanting to make Arsenal as unpredictable as possible. But if Eddie's going to stay in the middle, then Arsenal are a little bit easier to play against as a defence. And I wonder, with Nottingham Forest likely to play a deep block, Palace will probably play a relatively deep block. You'd assume that Fulham will play the same when they come to the Emirates at the end of the month. Those 3 games, I just wonder whether Eddie's... Listen, you want him scoring goals, and he'll score goals, I'm sure, across those 3 games if he does start all 3. But I think Arsenal as an attacking unit may not look as smooth just because of that interchange that Jesus offers, just because of that unpredictability. And he doesn't quite offer it in the same way. So it's a different player. It's different horses for courses, really. But I just thought it was interesting to note that and look at the strengths that Eddie's got as opposed to maybe the strength that Jesus has got. And going into the other options that Arsenal have, I want to talk about Kaya Havertz. And I haven't actually got a picture of Kaya Havertz up here. But what I have got is some hold-up play from Jesus against Barcelona. And again, Mikel Arteta referenced Jesus' best performance recently as being that Barcelona game where he was superb, I thought. And he's not a tall guy, Gabriel Jesus. I think he's 5'9". Listen, there are people who are watching this who will say 5'9" is tall. I'm 6'6", so I'm in no position to judge. But for me, 5'9" is not particularly tall. He does come up against a lot taller defenders. And his superpower, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to those target man plays, is his core strength. I think he's excellent when it comes to holding off players, and that's because he's got such a strong core. He's able to fight off anyone. And this example from the Barcelona game is perfect, and it does lead to Leandro Trossard's goal, which put Arsenal in front in the second half quite early on. Ramsdale just plays a goal kick, and you can see in the first still there on the left that Gabriel Jesus is just backing into Eric Garcia. Now, Eric Garcia is, I think, 8 centimetres taller than he is. So he's 6'1", I believe, or 6 foot. Not the tallest for a centre-back, but pretty tall nonetheless. And Jesus is giving him problems. And in the second still, you can see Jesus backing into him and using his strength. Garcia had to sort of head around him rather than being able to head the ball away. And without even touching the ball there, Jesus has caused a problem. And that's excellent centre-forward play. The ball then falls straight to Leandro Trossard. He runs towards the goal and shoots into the bottom corner beyond Nketiah, I believe. And Jules Koundé can't get to him quick enough. So that's the kind of stuff that Gabriel Jesus offers. Kai Havertz has played the centre-forward role at Chelsea, has done pretty well in that position at the early part of his career, but more recently has struggled in it. And the reason for that is he can't do this stuff as well. He's quite sort of languid in his style. And I spoke to a few people who cover Chelsea. I spoke to our Chelsea writer, actually, Scott Trotter at football.london, and he was telling me that when it comes to back to goal, Havertz isn't at his strongest. Where you want Havertz is on the end of chances, running on to chances late in the box. And both his goals for Arsenal in pre-season, the one against Barcelona and the one against MLS All-Stars came from those sort of third man late runs to get on crosses from the other side of the box. And that's where Kai Havertz's strength is. Chelsea, his best games and even his Champions League winning goal comes from a sort of a deep run beyond the defence, a sort of a darting run rather than necessarily having his back to goal and receiving the ball like that. So again, you could do it with Havertz, and he's tall, and he's good at heading, pretty good at that kind of stuff. You know, he's got a decent number of headed goals for Chelsea. But the issue is that with him playing centre forward and the false nine, if you like, you lose that ability to have that hold-up play and that outlet when Arsenal, for example, let's say against Manchester City, they're struggling and they're under the cosh and they want to go up long to their striker. Havertz won't really give you that in the same way that someone like a Jesus does. And people criticise Jesus, but he's such a unicorn of a striker because he can do it all. Havertz, I think, would be better served staying in a more deeper role. And I think that's why Arteta signed him. That's why he's come to Arsenal. He said in the past, I'm basically a midfielder who sometimes plays up front. And I don't think you want to be putting Havertz up there. I don't think it plays to his strengths. And I do think at this stage of his Arsenal career, when it's so early on, and there are some people who have doubts. He got an excellent welcome at the Emirates, but there are still some people who have doubts. I just think if you play him up front and he doesn't have the best couple of games, you risk sort of tight as someone who's maybe not coming off as a signing, and I don't think he needs that extra pressure. So as far as I'm concerned, Havertz not the option I go for, but there are strengths at least. Leandro Trossard, however, very different player to Jesus, and I spoke earlier about that intermingling that Jesus does, the popping up anywhere on the pitch. I do think Trossard, this is probably best placed to do that in terms of any of the options that Arsenal have up front. And you can see in this still here that Trossard, this is from his game against Leicester where he was playing up front and Jesus was injured and Eddie was injured on the same day, I believe. He had an ankle injury, but he was on the bench, I think. And Trossard was playing in the false nine and he pops up, starts the move at least in the centre forward position. Now that's in between the two Leicester centre backs. For those of you who can't see, it's Wout Faes and Harry Souttar. So a pretty normal centre forward position. The ball's on the left side of the pitch, sort of left touch line, and Arsenal trying to work it to him. And Granit Xhaka is slightly further forward. I don't quite know if you can see, but I've highlighted Gabriel Martinelli, who's just behind Granit Xhaka, so he's pretty deep. The ball gets played forward into still number two. We see this. To Trossard, but Trossard darts out to the left to receive the ball. Now he takes Harry Souttar with him, who's the centre-back, takes him out into the full-back position, and suddenly there's this massive gap between Souttar and Faes, and those are the kind of gaps that players like Gabriel Martinelli absolutely love, and Martinelli darts straight into it. Trossard is excellent on the ball, technically so superior to most players and superb. I love watching him play, and he nutmegs Harry Souttar to get the ball to Gabriel Martinelli. Martinelli darts into the box. Wout Faes can't get across to him quick enough, and Martinelli finishes for the game-winning goal in that game. And that's the kind of stuff that Leandro Trossard offers you. He did it a lot against Fulham as well, where he got that hat-trick of assists. And as a centre-forward, yes, he's not going to be able to provide the link-up play that Jesus offers in terms of the hold-up play, because Trossard is a smaller guy. He's not as physically imposing as Jesus. He won't be a target man in the same way Jesus can be. But in terms of that popping up anywhere on the pitch and that unpredictability and the ability to link with any of the Arsenal attacking options or any of the front line that Arsenal have, and saw this in the Barcelona game. Sometimes he was on the left wing, sometimes he was up front, sometimes he was on the right wing, sometimes in midfield, and he's played all those positions throughout pre-season for Arsenal and played them all pretty well. I just think Trossard offers you that interchangeability and that unpredictability that maybe some of the other Arsenal striking options don't offer so much, and I think he's certainly a really good option. Honestly, if I was having to choose, I'd probably go for him up top just because I think he offers more. And I think if you play Martinelli on the left, you don't. Maybe if you want an orthodox number 9 option, later in the game, you bring Eddie on. It does make sense. So I just think those are options that Arsenal might have going forward in the game. The final option, though, that they do have, and this is someone that people may be sleeping on ever so slightly, is Folarin Balogun. Now, I've got a couple of stills here, and I'll explain them later. First, I just want to give you a latest on his situation. So, Mikel Arteta basically said the plans haven't changed for Balogun despite Jesus' injury. So it does seem as though he's probably going to leave. I can't see him staying at Arsenal. He was out with a thigh injury, is what I was told, for the Emirates Cup game. He was out with a foot injury before that, is what Arteta told us in America against Barcelona when he was training on his own. There's obviously interest in Inter Milan, Arsenal. That £50 million price tag, I don't think they're going to get it, and I don't think necessarily it's something that they're going out and asking for right now. So I wonder if that's changed a little bit on that front. But plenty of Premier League teams have been reportedly interested. I know that RB Leipzig were interested before. I don't know if that's still the case now because they obviously went and signed the Belgian striker Lois Openda. But West Ham have been linked. Brighton, Palace also linked. Both are all good options for Flo Balogun, and the more teams interested, the better from an Arsenal perspective because they can hope to start a bidding war. But I just want to give you a bit of insight. Record last season, the number of goals he got last season, 22 in all comps for Stade de Rennes, which is very, very impressive. But the kind of goals he was getting were very similar to these ones here. Obviously, a few penalties in there, but generally the kind of goals he would get would be goals in transition. So on the left here, and this is against PSG, which is probably his most high-profile goal that he scored while with Stade de Rennes. I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Camora. Wins the ball back off Renato Sanchez in the middle of the pitch there on the left-hand side, you can see. And Balogun is already looking to get beyond the last man. This is the kind of striker he is. He tries to get in behind where possible. When teams win the ball up high, which is what Stade de Rennes tried to do, they get it forward to him as quickly as possible. Rennes basically used him as an outlet. They got it as quickly forward as possible. As you can see, Balogun's ready for that. Sergio Ramos is playing him on side. Marquinhos is just behind him. So he's positioned himself well in between the two centre-backs and he's ready to receive. And then in the next still, you can see Camora plays the ball forward to him. Balogun gets the ball and then goes forward and rounds. I think it's Donnarumma in goal. And Stade de Rennes get a famous draw against PSG, which no one expected. So those are the kind of goals that Flo Balogun tends to get. And there's already been signs that he can do that for Arsenal, even in these limited appearances we saw in pre-season. If you look back on his goal, let me just go forward into that. Nope, that will come later. If you look back on his last-minute miss against FC Nuremberg, it's a very similar transition moment to this, where Miles Lewis-Skelly gets the ball in midfield, wins it off. I can't remember the Nuremberg midfielder's name. I'm so sorry. Plays it forward immediately. Lovely pass from Lewis-Skelly. And I'll try and bring you a bit more on the under-21 throughout the season as well, because I think there's some very talented players coming through that team. But Lewis-Skelly plays it straight through to Flo Balogun. Balogun is in on it, tries to go around the keeper and score just as he did against PSG. If you haven't had a chance to watch this PSG goal, please go and do so. But also, the similar thing happened against FC Nuremberg, but the only difference was he put it on the wrong side of the post. Now, against teams who play high lines, like Manchester City, I think Flo Balogun can be a real asset to Arsenal. And listen, if Mikel Arteta wants to win that game and use it purely as a trophy exercise and care just about the 90 minutes, I think playing Flo Balogun up front is his best bet, because I think those moments in transition where Arsenal will look to get the ball forward quickly with someone like a Declan Rice in midfield, who's a machine when it comes to winning the ball back high up the pitch, I just think it makes sense to play Flo Balogun up front. I don't think he'll do that because it does seem, like I say, that Flo Balogun is likely to leave and there's all that going on and he is injured, as we've been told. So I don't know how fit he'll be. But it's always interesting to think, the options that Arsenal do have. And in transition, if Arsenal are trying to get the ball forward quickly and City play a very high line, someone like a Flo Balogun is a really good option. And just as Jesus is, and I think Eddie can do it a bit, but Flo Balogun's excellent at it. And those are the kind of goals that he scores on a regular basis and the kind of goals he scored on a regular basis for Stade de Rennes last season. So, yeah, I don't think, though, against deeper blocks like Forest, Palace and Fulham that Arsenal are going to be playing in the first three games, where Arsenal are likely to face deeper blocks, I just don't think quite that Balogun is the option to go for. So, listen, if you ask me out of the four who I'd go for, I personally would have to say Leandro Trossard. I just think he offers Arsenal the most and they lose the least in terms of their attacking unpredictability with him in the middle. But let me know in the comment section what you think, who you think Arsenal's striker should be across the next few games when Jesus is out. That's just a little bit of insight from me into what I think the options are. I wanted to go into transfers now. You've waited 25 minutes. You've waited long enough. So, of course, we have to talk transfers. And the big story while I was off on holiday and I turned my Twitter back on for a little bit on my birthday just to respond to some birthday messages and ping, 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 David Raya. So, yeah, he seems to be the big story right now. And obviously, I've been aware of interest in David Raya for a little while now, but I just didn't quite feel it was enough to report. And then, what do you know? Arsenal are interested in David Raya. So it's sometimes the way it goes on that front. He is a player who fits the Mikel Arteta mold perfectly. he's been interested in. Arsenal have been interested in Raya for a very long time. Obviously, worked with Nketiah at Brentford. We all know that story there. Nketiah, the Arsenal goalkeeping coach. The links are strong. Arsenal wanted Raya when he was in the Championship, but it was deemed too expensive back then, and they pivoted to, I believe, pivoted to Aaron Ramsdale, and we're very happy to get Aaron Ramsdale. It's interesting to think what it means for Ramsdale, and I'll come on to that in a little bit. But the valuation that Brentford are putting out there is around 40 million. Thomas Frank has said it will take 40 million to get him. I think Arsenal will feel confident in negotiating that down, and there's reports this morning that they've submitted a bid of 23 million, I believe. I don't know. I've not been able to stand those reports up myself, so I will try and do that as quick as possible for you all. But yeah, that is the kind of fee that's being talked about for David Raya. 23 million, I think, would be a steal for a goalkeeper of his quality. I don't think Brentford will accept that as a first bid. I wonder if maybe you look somewhere in the 30 to 35 million pound mark, which in itself is a lot for someone who essentially might be a backup goalie, because Arsenal have a goalkeeper in Aaron Ramsdale, who they just gave a contract to just a couple of months ago. And Aaron was pretty good against Monaco, I thought. He was pretty decent. He's come under some scrutiny across pre-season and come under scrutiny this week because obviously those Raya links, and people think David Raya might be a better option. A little touch I just want to do on Ramsdale's open letter that he did in the Players' Tribune. If you haven't read that, go and read it. It's unbelievable. Some of the stuff he says about homophobia, I think, is fantastic. Really strong on that, especially with some of the stuff going on in the world at the minute. I think for him to choose this time to speak up on that is superb. Really honest as well about, unfortunately, the sad news that he suffered. His wife suffered a miscarriage around January, just before the North London derby, actually, and that kind of stuff. I think I love seeing that honesty from players. I think we all do, and I think it humanises them in a way that sometimes we forget. And I thought this with Eddie when people were giving him stick before the game. Sometimes we forget they are just human beings. And yeah, I think if you stick to just criticising the football, sometimes that's absolutely fine. But sometimes it goes over the line. And I think Ramsdale very eloquently sort of got that across in the letter. So yeah, if you haven't read it, do read it. But I asked Mikel Arteta after the Monaco game about him, and he's sort of asked how he thought he fared under the pressure, because there was a lot of pressure on Ramsdale going into that game. And when I said there was penalty shootout after the game, a lot of the comments in my mentions on Twitter were, oh God, Ramsdale's going to be terrible at penalties. And what do you know? He saves the crucial penalty in the shootout. And Arteta he said he was really good. I think he was really composed in the game. I think he didn't have to intervene too much. There were two actions, one the goal, which was very close range, and the other was a cutback where they hit the post. Other than that, he didn't have much to do. Everything he had in possession was really good. I then asked him, is he still crucial to your plans? Because that's what he was saying when they extended the contract. And obviously the David Raya links questioned that. And Arteta was simple, shaking the head. Nope, still the same. So you have to take the manager's word for that. And it does seem as though the plan is to bring Raya in and have him as competition for Ramsdale. So make of that what you will. It would give Arsenal two very strong goalkeepers, and they've got strong players in every other position. So I don't see why this would be any different. Interesting to think about. I've accidentally clicked the button there, so I might as well go on to him. Auston Trusty has left. So the outgoings are very important for Arsenal now. That's what they're primarily focused on in terms of getting players out of the club. I know they want to bring David Raya in. That obviously is going on, but getting players out of the club is the big focus right now. And Auston Trusty has left. £5 million, which personally I think is good money. People think, it should have been 10, 15. Based on what? That's my question when I hear that. Based on what? Like, he was good in the Championship for Birmingham, player of the season, but Birmingham aren't a team that are anywhere near the top. American international, when he came in, was valued at 1.5 million. I believe that's where Sheffield United sort of started the talks around, and Arsenal were able to get 5 million. So I think it's good business from Edu. I think he's doing a good job of getting good fees for players this summer. Obviously, Xhaka for 25 million euros was great business. Pablo Mari for nearly £6 million has gone, and they're trying to get rid of some more players. And let's go on to them. So 3 there: Albert Sambi Lokonga, Nuno Tavares, and Nicola Pepe. And as I reported at the start of the window, Arsenal are willing to terminate Pepe's contract, and it does seem as though that is in the offing potentially. A few links suggesting that they might terminate his contract in order to facilitate a move to Besiktas. He wasn't even on the back of the programme against Monaco on Wednesday, nor was Nuno Tavares, who is being linked with moves away. He wants to stay in the Premier League, is my information, but I don't know of any concrete interest in him as of yet. I will try and do a bit of research in the coming days for you. As I say, it's been a very busy few days. Albert Samuel Lokonga has interest from Burnley. That I can confirm for you. They're deciding whether to go for a loan move or a permanent move. The decision there, basically, Burnley have a limited number of loan spots they can do this season, and if they want to buy him permanently next season, they're just deciding whether they have the facilities to do that now or the facilities to do that later. But it does seem as though Lokonga's keen on that. Obviously, worked with Vincent Kompany at Anderlecht. Has spoken in the past about how he wants to get that Anderlecht Sambi back and playing with a smile on his face. And Kompany plays a very nice style of football up there in Burnley. So it would be interesting, and I think a good move for Sambi. I think he needs to get away from Arsenal and play because he's had a tough few years, and I think he needs to get himself back on track in terms of his career. Who else could leave? Marquinhos, attracting loan interest from Olympiacos, and I believe Nantes are also trying to hijack that deal potentially. So plenty of movement in the departure lounge. Cedric Suarez also has interest from Porto's three big clubs. Big three clubs. Porto, Benfica, Sporting Lisbon and Villarreal, as I've already reported, and apparently some teams in the Premier League. There's been informal discussions with his agent there. So all that is going on. I'm trying to think of the other exits. Touched on Folarin Balogun earlier. Arthur Okonkwo, as I reported first at the start of the last month, is close to sealing a move away. He has been given permission basically to leave by Arsenal. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Now seems like the time to strike while the iron is hot. Had a great loan spell at Sturm Graz last season, a good loan spell before that in the first half of the season at Crewe as well. So I think now is the time to let Arthur go, although personally I'd love to keep him as a third choice goalie because I think he'd be a brilliant addition to the squad, but it does seem as though now is the time for him to move on. What else? Runnison maybe on his way as well. Trying to think of the other players who could leave. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if I've forgotten anyone. Let's see. So yeah, that is it in terms of what I want to talk to you about today. I hope you enjoyed the slightly more in-depth stuff on the striker. Let me know if that's the kind of stuff that you guys like. The transfer talk, I'll be giving you a little bit more on that. Don't worry. It's coming. Transfer stuff will be a little bit more deep as the window goes on. But listen, it's only the 4th of August and the transfer window ends on the 2nd of September. I'm not quite sure what's going on upstairs in my house. It seems some sort of banging is going on. So I should probably go and investigate that. But before I go and do that, let me go and say thank you everyone for tuning in. As always, thank you so much for watching these videos. Your support is what keeps me going, as I always say, but I mean it every single time. So thank you so much for all your support. Please do keep liking, subscribing. Follow me on Twitter at Kaya Kaynak 97, Facebook Kaya Kaynak Journalist, and Instagram and Thread is at Kaya Kaynak FL. I will bring you a little bit of reaction hopefully later to Mikel Arteta's press conference as well. Like I say, that is going to be at 3 p.m. Scheduled to start then ahead of the Community Shield with Manchester City. So speak to you all very soon, and let me know again what you think in the comment section. Please do get your questions in because I love answering them, and hopefully we'll get a bit more time to answer a few more questions later throughout the window. So until I see you soon, thank you very much for tuning in, and cheers guys. Bye-bye.